This is a 2018 Mercedes C-Class, and it's got a 1.5 litre engine. That's right, a brand known for putting fire-breathing V8s in opulent and luxurious cars has put an engine more befitting of a Suzuki Swift in its premium coupe. So, it must be awful, right? Well, whilst this may sound underwhelming, Mercedes has implemented some seriously smart tech in this car, and today we're going to put it through its paces in the real world. We're going to see if Stuttgart's engineering is at its best, or if it's just marketing spiel. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Okay, so bar the dramatic intro, this car does indeed have some interesting tech. The main bit is the Mercedes EQ boost system. In this car, it's a 13 brake horsepower, 48 volt mild hybrid system that theoretically should make this car more efficient without making it feel sluggish. The 1.5 litre engine produces 180 horsepower and 280 newton meters of torque. Not exactly hair-raising stuff, but these coupes are more about cruising and the effortless drivability. Things that 3 litre engines tend to do much better than their smaller counterparts. Here on the inside, the tech fest continues. In 2018, Mercedes decided to give the C-Class a mild facelift. Although having said that, the addition of a digital display and a slightly larger infotainment screen has almost made it feel like a generational leap over the older one. This is the Premium Plus model, meaning you get pretty much everything you could ever need. Heated electric seats, a panoramic roof, a 360 camera, the Burmester sound system, and much, much more. The rear seats are sort of usable for short periods of time. As you can see, I've got not really any legroom, and headroom is kind of not there either. The best car in this class is actually the BMW 4 Series, but to be honest, you're not going to buy a coupe for its practicality, you're buying it for its looks. In the boot, the practicality, or lack of it, theme continues. You've only got 360 litres of space, which compared to the Audi A5 and the BMW 4 Series is 90 litres less. However, having said that, there is still enough room for 3 big suitcases and 4 smaller ones. Now, let's see what this car's like on the road. Let's see if a 1.5 litre engine can really feel as good as a 3 litre. Right, let's get this show on the road. We're driving the 2018 Mercedes C-Class Coupe. We're going to take it round town on the motorway, and then we're going to do some driving on some twistier roads. First, let's talk about the suspension. So being the AMG line Premium Plus car, you get lowered stiffened suspension over the SE and the Sport models. But going over those speed bumps back there feels totally fine. Feels really composed, which is nice. But it doesn't feel really, really stiff like some other cars do. Now let's see what the parking is like. This car has the 360 camera option, which does come part of the Premium Plus package, but it should make parking really, really easy. In fact, let's try this space right here. One thing I love about Mercedes is they have a steering column mounted gear shifter. So that means going forwards and backwards is like really, really easy. And with the 360 camera, it's just, you know, can't really go wrong with this car. Okay, let's crack on. Steering at low speeds is also really easy. I mean, this is a luxury car, so you want the steering to be nice and light when you're not trying to drive in a sporty way. Now the first thing we'll talk about with EQ boost is, so I'm at a junction now, I've got the hill hold assist on. But one thing the 48 volt mild hybrid system does is it starts the engine instantly. So coming out of junctions, it feels like the engine was actually already on. Now we're going to reset the trip computer so we can see what kind of MPG we get driving around town and on the motorway. On Mercedes website it says we should get a combined cycle of 46 miles to the gallon. Certainly quite impressive for a sort of luxurious coupe. But I still don't think we're going to quite get that number. Hopefully the EQ boost system can prove me wrong. Let's see what it's like going around this roundabout just in efficiency mode. You can tell that the AMG line suspension definitely keeps the car quite a lot flatter actually than the SE or the Sport. We're going to be coming up to a national speed limit sign in a minute, so I can give you a taste of what the acceleration is like. Okay, now we're at the national speed limit sign. I can put the car into dynamic mode, or Sports Plus as it's called in Mercedes. This will make the steering quite a lot heavier. It does feel quite nice and direct though. Throttle pedal will be more responsive and the gearbox will hold on to gears longer. Coming around this roundabout, it feels nice and planted. Very neutral chassis. And the acceleration feels quite good actually. It certainly feels more than 180 horsepower. Another thing the EQ boost system does is it fills that gap where turbo lag would be. So this engine almost feels naturally aspirated once you're in Sports Plus. Obviously in efficiency mode you can tell that there's a bit of turbo lag, but when the revs are higher it actually feels naturally aspirated. It's quite a weird sensation. For now we're going to put the car back into efficiency and we're going to do a couple of miles on the motorway so you can see what kind of realistic MPG figure you're going to get. And then after that we're going to do some driving on our favourite twisty road and see what sort of fun we can have. Back there at the roundabout it actually felt really nice. It felt just as nice as a BMW 4 Series actually. But we'll see if this car's designed for a bit more comfort than that. I'm sure it is, being a Mercedes. But let's find out. Okay, now we're on the motorway. It gives us a chance to talk about some of the other things in this car. One thing this new Mercedes C-Class gets is a 9-speed gearbox. But you can see we're sitting at 60 miles an hour now, well under 2,000 RPM, and we're only in 8th gear at the moment. So there's a whole nother gear to go. Another thing the EQ boost system has is something called glide mode, I think. It's either glide or sail mode. So when you come off the throttle, say you're going down a hill, it will actually completely cut the engine, just like it's done now. So you're actually saving fuel a lot more than you would if you were just coasting down a hill. And that doesn't mean you're getting no power at all. The battery is actually trying to keep the car at the same speed, so you're not losing any kinetic energy. In terms of comfort, obviously being a Mercedes is very comfortable. These seats have a good amount of support, and because this is the Premium Plus car you get plenty of adjustability. You can adjust the pitch of the seat base, obviously you can recline it, you have lumbar support, and you also have a little extendable bit at the bottom of the seat to give you some under thigh support. You'd have no problem doing a 9-hour journey in this car. as long as you're in the front. If you're in the back, then I feel sorry for you. Then in terms of interior quality, again, it's really good. You've got leather on the door sills, you've got leather on the dash. It's also got this squidgy material underneath it. You have leather all the way down here. You've even got squidgy materials on the door cards right at the bottom as well. Can't really find any cheap plastics in here. The only piece I can find is just here. But even then, it's still covered in a squidgy material. You have this really nice open pore wood in the centre of the dash that's been in the C-Class since its proper facelift in 2015, I believe, or 2014. Each one is actually individual to the car. So if you look at the grain on different types of C-Class, you'll actually see each one is completely individual to the car. Quite an interesting fact. You've also got metal grills for the speakers. They look really, really nice. I don't think any other manufacturer is making speaker grills as nice as this. One thing though is the actual quality of the audio isn't quite up to par, to be honest. For a Burmester system, I'd expect quite a lot more bass. This system doesn't seem to quite have the punchiness that other systems have, which is a tad disappointing, but I'm sure in things like the S-Class Coupe, when you pay a lot of money, you're going to get a proper Burmester system. In terms of road noise, there's almost none of it. We're not on very big wheels for this car, for its size. And it shows. There's almost no road noise whatsoever. Wind noise is also kept to a minimum. It's certainly on par with an Audi A5 and a BMW 4 Series. I think the Audi A5 has slightly more refinement than this, purely because the engine is just slightly further forward, whereas this car, the engine's slightly further back to maintain that 50-50 weight distribution. And the only wind noise I can hear is just coming from around here, from the wing mirror. But it's really not much. In terms of visibility, it's actually really good. One thing coupes all have in common is there's no B-pillar right next to your head, so you don't have to do that to look around. You can just look in the mirror if you want to. It's got that curved bit of glass so you can see everything that's in your blind spot. But when you do need to look over your shoulder, you can see everything that's right next to you really, really easily. The only bit of visibility that's not so great is at the rear view mirror. The windscreen is quite small because it's got that coupe shape, but it's easily livable, and being a Premium Plus car, you've got 360 camera, you've got everything you need. It's really not that hard to maneuver in this car. One of the biggest features the facelift model included was the addition of this digital cockpit. And you can actually set different types of view. So if you go into the design mode, you have sport, which obviously makes it look more sporty. You get this sort of yellowy orange colour, makes it look slightly more aggressive. Classic mode, which is probably my favourite mode. I'm sort of indecisive between that and the progressive mode. Progressive mode, it makes it look like a really futuristic cabin. The only downside is you have slightly less information, as it keeps it kind of to a minimalistic look, but it tells you exactly how many revs you're doing and your speed. You've still got all the information you need, it's just not quite as informative as the classic mode. But I'm going to leave it in progressive for now because I do actually prefer this over the other ones. So on that motorway run, we managed an average of a reasonably respectful 34.4 mpg. There's no doubt in my mind on the longer run you'd easily get over 50 miles to the gallon, and that's where the EQ boost system really does come into its own. It just fills that gap of torque and also stops you from using so much fuel when you don't need to be using it. Now we're on our favourite bit of road, so we're going to put the car into Sports Plus and see what the handling's like. I can even change gears myself, which I'm actually going to do. You get a bit of pumped in noise from the outside, but that's fine. So even a little 1.5 litre engine seems to get this car up to speed nicely. Suspension is nice and controlled, so nothing to worry about there. Brakes feel nice. The steering and the chassis balance is actually the thing I'm most surprised about. The 9-speed gearbox could be a little bit better in terms of its response. Let's see what the acceleration's like from 0. This car will do 0 to 60 in about 7.9 seconds, so it's what I would call adequate. But again, the chassis balance for a Mercedes is so good. I never thought it would be just as good as the BMW 4 Series in that regard. It's actually quite good fun. We're going to make our way back to the dealership now. We're going to do a couple more motorway miles and then see what our final MPG figure is. But even with that little bit of fun driving around there, we managed to get 37.1 miles to the gallon. Quite impressive really for a car that's A, quite fun, and B, not actually that slow. Right, we're back at the dealership now, so I thought I'd wrap the video up here. On our journey back, I did actually see just over 50 miles to the gallon on the motorway, although driving through Watford there was a huge amount of traffic, as there always is, so we ended up with a final figure of 40.9. Still fairly impressive, certainly better than what you'd see from the slightly older Mercedes C-Class, which didn't have the EQ boost system. You probably would have seen about 36 miles to the gallon. One big advantage of this system though is I noticed driving back on the motorway, sitting in 9th gear, if you just gave the throttle a little push, it actually kind of felt like you were driving a much bigger engine, purely because it gives you that little shove of torque, so it's not having to work so hard when you're sitting at quite a high speed. But if you were thinking of buying one of these cars, certainly don't be put off by the smaller engine size. It doesn't actually mean much. This car's still got plenty of poke to keep you going, and it'll sit at higher speeds really, really easily. As always, if you like the video, give it a like, and why not subscribe to our channel so you can see some more of our stock. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.